Okay, so get this.
Mm-hmm.
A pod of 157 false killer whales
Wow.
beach themselves on a remote Tasmanian beach.
Oh, wow.
Now, you might be thinking another whale stranding story,
Right.
but this one is different.
Okay.
Not only is this a rare event for this species,
Uh-huh.
but Tasmania itself is a stranding hotspot.
Really?
We've got a stack of sources to unpack here.
Okay.
News articles from NBC, AP, BBC,
Yeah.
and some summarized briefing documents.
Okay.
What we're trying to do today is understand what happened,
Mm-hmm.
how people tried to help,
Right.
and maybe get a little closer to the why behind it all.
Yeah.
Because, let's be honest,
Mm-hmm.
these events, they make you think about the bigger picture, don't they?
Absolutely.
Animal welfare, ecological mysteries, the whole human intervention thing.
Yeah.
It's heavy stuff.
So what's interesting about the stranding is that it's not just some random beach we're talking about.
Okay.
This happened at Arthur River in northwest Tasmania.
Right.
Kris Carlyon, a marine biologist
Mm-hmm.
who has been responding to strandings for 16 years, called this
16 years.
the trickiest location he's ever worked with.
Okay.
So imagine the scene.
Yeah.
A remote beach, difficult to access,
Right.
and over 150 large dolphins stranded on the sand.
Wow. 16 years of experience.
Yeah.
And this is the trickiest.
This is the trickiest he's ever seen.
That already tells you something, right?
Definitely.
So we're talking about a location that's practically inaccessible.
Right.
What did the rescue efforts even look like in a place like that?
So let me paint a picture for you.
Okay.
The first reports came in on February 18th, 2025.
18.
Initially, there was hope.
Okay.
136 of the whales were still alive.
Wow.
Officials from the Department of Natural Resources and Environment Tasmania were on the scene,
Okay.
along with marine experts and veterinarians.
Gotcha.
But as you can imagine, the conditions were just brutal.
Yeah.
The seas were rough,
Right.
making it impossible to safely refloat the whales.
Mhm.
Plus, we're not talking about little flipper here.
Right.
These animals are massive.
And there were babies, too, right?
Yes.
I read an eyewitness account
Mm-hmm.
that really got to me.
Yeah.
Jocelyn Flint,
Uh-huh.
a local resident,
Right.
went to the beach after her son discovered the whales while out shark fishing.
Oh, wow.
She said, there are babies. Their eyes are open. They're looking at me like help.
Oh.
It just breaks your
It
heart.
does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It really highlights the tragedy of it all.
Yeah.
And as time went on,
Mhm.
the situation just kept getting worse.
Oh, no.
By Wednesday afternoon,
Okay.
the number of surviving whales had plummeted to 90. Shelley Graham, the incident controller for the department, said
Mhm.
the animals are continuously restranding.
Oh, wow.
Basically, the waves kept pushing them back onto the shore, no matter what the rescuers tried.
So they were fighting a losing battle.
Yeah.
It must have felt so helpless. What
Okay.
happens at that point when saving them just isn't possible?
Well, that's when the really tough decisions have to be made.
Right.
The experts on the scene, including Kris Carlyon,
Hmm.
ultimately decided to euthanize the remaining 90 whales.
Wow.
He was quoted saying that euthanasia is always a last resort.
Right.
I think we sometimes forget that in these situations, ending suffering can be the kindest option
Mhm.
when all other options are exhausted.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a heavy decision to make.
for sure.
And it really makes you question those big what-if questions, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Like, what if they had been closer to a more accessible location?
Yeah,
What if the seas had been calmer?
right.
It's easy to get caught up in those what-ifs, but
Yeah,
nature often throws us curveballs we just can't control.
exactly. And I think this situation really forces us to grapple with the limits of human intervention.
Mhm.
We have this innate desire to help,
Yeah,
to save the day.
right.
But sometimes the forces of nature are just too powerful,
Right.
too complex.
And it's not just about the practical challenges, right?
No,
This event brings up those tricky ethical questions, too.
absolutely.
Where do we draw the line?
Right.
When is it appropriate to intervene? And when do we need to step back and let nature run its course?
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's never easy,
Mhm.
and there are rarely clear-cut answers.
Right.
But that's what makes this such a compelling case.
Right.
It forces us to examine our relationship with the natural world in a deeper, more nuanced way.
Okay, so we've got this heartbreaking scene playing out on a remote Tasmanian beach,
Yeah,
heroic rescue efforts ultimately failing.
right.
And tough decision made with best intentions,
Mm-hmm.
but it still leaves us with the biggest question of all.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Right.
Why did this happen in the first place?
Well, the exact cause of this particular stranding remains unknown.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that's often the case.
Right.
It's like a detective novel with missing pieces.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are some general theories that scientists consider when investigating these events.
Okay.
And I think it'd be helpful to explore some of those possibilities.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Let's dive into that. I'm dying to understand what could lead a whole pod of these animals to strand themselves.
So let's start with the natural factors.
Okay.
Whales rely on echolocation to navigate kind of like their own sonar system.
Right.
Changes in the seabed, unusual currents, or even noise pollution can disrupt their sonar,
Yeah.
leading to disorientation and navigational errors.
Gotcha.
Imagine their internal GPS going haywire.
Oh, wow.
They could easily end up in unfamiliar, dangerous waters.
So they get lost, essentially.
Essentially.
It's like taking a wrong turn on a road trip, but with much higher stakes.
That's a good analogy. And then there are things like sickness, old age, or injury.
Okay.
A weakened whale might not be able to navigate properly or fight against strong currents, making it vulnerable to being swept towards shore. And of course, we can't forget about the impact of bad weather.
Right.
Storms can disorient whales, push them off course, and even cause physical damage.
But we have to consider human impact too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Our actions can't be completely innocent in all of this.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Human activity definitely plays a role.
Okay.
Noise pollution from shipping and sonar can interfere with whale communication and navigation.
Right.
And some scientists believe that whales might be following prey too close to shore, leading them into shallow waters where they become trapped.
Okay.
It's a complex web of factors, both natural and human-induced.
So it's not a simple answer.
No, it's not.
It could be any one of these things, or even a combination of them, that contributed to this tragedy.
Exactly.
What about the fact that this happened in Tasmania?
Yeah.
Doesn't that play a role too?
It's an excellent question.
Yeah.
And it leads us to the next fascinating layer of this story.
Okay.
You see, this isn't just a one-off event. Tasmania has a rather unfortunate reputation as a stranding hotspot.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I remember reading that over 80% of Australian whale strandings happen in Tasmanian waters.
Exactly.
There was even that devastating event in Macquarie Harbour a few years down.
Exactly. In 2020, over 470 pilot whales stranded there.
Wow.
Australia's worst mass stranding to date.
That's terrible.
And then in 2022, the same harbor saw another 200 pilot whales stranded.
Oh, my God.
So this latest event with the false killer whales adds to this unsettling pattern.
It's almost like Tasmania is a Bermuda Triangle for whales.
Right.
What is it about these waters that make them so risky?
Well, that's the million-dollar question that scientists are trying to answer.
Okay.
There's ongoing research looking into the geography, the currents, the prey distribution, even the magnetic fields in the region.
So there's a chance we could eventually figure out what makes Tasmania such a high-risk zone.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
And the more we learn, the better equipped we'll be to potentially prevent these tragedies, or at least mitigate the harm when they do occur.
Right.
But there's another wrinkle to this story.
Okay.
Something that makes this particular event even more peculiar.
Okay, I'm all ears. Lay it on me.
This time, it involved false killer whales.
Okay.
Not the pilot whales that are typically involved in Tasmanian strandings.
Interesting.
And to make it even more unusual, this is the first mass stranding of false killer whales in the region since 1974.
Wait, so they're not even true whales?
Nope.
What exactly are we dealing with here?
Well, despite their name, false killer whales are actually large oceanic dolphins.
Really?
They can grow up to 6 meters long.
Wow.
Weigh over 1.5 tons.
That's incredible.
And are known for their intelligence and complex social behavior.
So this event isn't just about a tragedy.
Right.
It's also about a species that we clearly still don't fully understand.
Exactly.
What are they doing in these waters?
Yeah.
Why are they venturing so close to shore?
Those are the questions that keep scientists on their toes. And it's this mystery combined with the heartbreaking circumstances of the stranding that makes this such a compelling story.
Okay.
A story that challenges our understanding of the natural world and our role within it.
All right, you've definitely piqued my curiosity.
Good.
Tell me more about these false killer whales.
Okay.
What makes them unique?
Sure.
Why are they called false killer whales in the first place?
I'm happy to dive into that with you.
Perfect,
Right?
because at this point I'm hooked.
Okay.
I need to know more.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so before we get into the specifics of false killer whales,
Okay.
I have to ask, what's the one thing that stuck with you the most about this whole situation? For me, it's the sheer powerlessness of it all.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think it resonates with a lot of people.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
we see these images of stranded whales
Yeah.
and we want to help
Right.
to fix things.
Yeah.
But as you said, there's this overwhelming feeling of helplessness sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, are we even supposed to intervene in these situations?
Right.
Or is that just messing with the natural order of things?
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough question.
It really is.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's no easy answer.
Right.
There are times when human intervention can be incredibly effective.
Okay.
Think about rescuing entangled whales
Mm-hmm.
or rehabilitating injured animals.
Yeah.
But then you have cases like this, Stranding, where even with the best intentions and most dedicated efforts, we're up against forces that are just beyond our control.
It's like you said earlier.
Yeah.
The tricky location, the rough seas, the size of these animals. It all conspired to make rescue practically impossible.
Yeah.
And then you have to make that heartbreaking decision to euthanize them, to end their suffering.
It's tough.
It's a heavy burden.
It is.
Yeah.
And it challenges our assumptions about what it means to help in these situations.
Okay.
Maybe sometimes the kindest, most ethical thing we can do is acknowledge the limits of our intervention and allow nature to take its course, even if it's difficult to witness.
That's a really profound way to look at it.
Yeah.
It's not about imposing our will on nature,
Right.
but about respecting its complexities and recognizing that we don't always have the answers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that realization can be both humbling and liberating.
Okay.
It frees us from the pressure of always having to fix things and allows us to approach these situations with a sense of humility and acceptance.
But acceptance doesn't mean inaction, right?
No, not at all.
Just because we can't always control the outcome doesn't mean we shouldn't try to learn from these experiences and find ways to prevent future tragedies.
Absolutely. This deep dive is a perfect example of that.
Okay.
We're exploring this event, trying to understand the factors that contributed to it, and hopefully using that knowledge to inform future conservation efforts.
Yeah.
And that's where you, the listener, come in.
Oh, I like where you're going with this.
Okay.
Let's tell me more.
So this deep dive is just the starting point.
Okay.
Don't let it end here.
Right.
Go out and learn more about whale strandings, these specific challenges they face in Tasmania, and the ongoing research into understanding and preventing these events.
Right.
Become a citizen scientist, an armchair oceanographer.
Right. We can all do our part to raise awareness.
Absolutely.
Support conservation organizations.
Yes.
Advocate for policies that protect these amazing creatures.
Exactly.
Knowledge is power. And the more we know, the more effectively we can act.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of knowledge, let's get back to those fascinating false killer whales.
Yes.
You asked why they're called false killer whales.
Yeah.
Well, it's a bit of a misnomer.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Okay.
Tell me everything.
Their name comes from the fact that their skulls bear a resemblance to those of killer whales.
Right.
But they're actually a distinct species, more closely related to oceanic dolphins.
Really?
They can grow to 6 meters long.
Wow.
Weigh over 1.5 tons.
That's incredible.
And they're incredibly intelligent and social animals.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
They're like the wolves of the ocean, aren't they?
That's a great analogy.
Fierce predators, but also incredibly loyal and protective of their pack.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And like wolves, they play a crucial role in maintaining the balance of the ecosystem.
Right.
They help regulate prey populations and contribute to the overall health of the ocean.
So they're not just fascinating, they're vital to the marine ecosystem.
Yeah.
That makes this stranding even more significant, doesn't it?
It does, and it highlights the interconnectedness of all living things. What happens to the whales in Tasmania has implications for the health of the entire ocean.
Wow.
Which ultimately impacts us all. You can't separate ourselves from these events.
You're right. It's a reminder that we're all part of this intricate web of life, and our actions have consequences that ripple far beyond ourselves.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that brings us to a crucial question.
Okay.
What does this event and others like it tell us about the state of our oceans? Are they healthy?
Yeah.
Are they thriving? Or are they struggling to survive under the pressure of human activity?
Ooh, that's a big question.
It is.
One I'm not sure I'm ready to answer.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely ready to delve deeper.
Okay.
What are some of the warning signs we should be paying attention to?
Well...
So we've established that false killer whales are a vital part of the ocean ecosystem.
Right.
And they're stranded in Tasmania is a real cause for concern.
Yeah.
But is this a sign of a larger problem?
Right.
Are oceans in trouble?
It's a question that weighs heavily on the minds of scientists and conservationists around the world.
Yeah.
And the answer, unfortunately, is not a simple one.
Okay.
There are definitely warning signs that we need to pay attention to.
Like what?
Well, what are some of the red flags that tell us something's not quite right?
Right.
Well, as we've discussed, whale strandings, while not a new phenomenon, seem to be increasing in frequency and severity in many parts of the world.
Okay.
And that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
We're also seeing alarming declines in fish populations.
Oh, wow.
Widespread coral bleaching events.
Yeah.
Ocean acidification. And the ever-growing problem of plastic pollution.
Right.
It's a pretty bleak picture.
It's almost like the ocean is sending us an SOS, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's a desperate plea for help.
That's a powerful way to put it.
Yeah.
And the consequences of ignoring these warnings are dire.
Right.
Not just for marine life, but for all of us.
Okay.
Remember, our lives are inextricably linked to the health of the oceans.
Right.
They provide us with food, oxygen, climate regulation.
Right.
They're essential to our very existence.
So what can we do? It feels overwhelming sometimes, doesn't it?
It does.
Like these problems are just too big for any one person to make a difference.
I understand that feeling.
Okay.
It's easy to feel paralyzed by the enormity of the challenge.
Right.
But I truly believe that even small actions can have a ripple effect.
Okay.
We can start by reducing our own carbon footprint, making conscious choices about the seafood we consume, and supporting organizations that are working to protect our oceans.
And we can use our voices to advocate for change, right?
Absolutely.
Talk to our friends and family.
Yeah.
Contact our elected officials. Support policies that promote ocean conservation.
Right.
Every action counts.
Exactly. Every voice matters.
Okay.
Collective action is what drives real change.
Right.
And remember, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The more we learn about these issues, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions and take effective action.
So this deep dive isn't just about understanding a tragic event.
No.
It's about empowering ourselves to become part of the solution.
Precisely.
Okay.
Don't let the sadness and the mystery paralyze you.
Right.
Let it fuel your curiosity, your compassion, and your determination to make a difference.
Because ultimately, the future of our oceans, and indeed the future of our planet, depends on the choices we make today.
And those choices begin with awareness, understanding, and a willingness to act.
So now that you know about Tasmania's stranding problem and the challenges facing our oceans, what will you do to become part of the solution? What actions will you take to make a difference?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Of course.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep learning.
And remember, the ocean needs you.
Absolutely.
Every action, no matter how small, can make a difference.
It really can.